Can you imagine what it means for the very party that propelled you to power to publicly turn its back on you? That is exactly what just happened in Washington. The House of Representatives, dominated by Republicans, made an unexpected and decisive decision to withdraw support from President Donald Trump. This is not just a common political disagreement, but a historic rupture within the Republican Party. A direct blow to the core of the MAGA movement, leaving it exposed and vulnerable. Like never before, this news hit the Capitol like a bombshell. Congress members who yesterday fervently defended Trump now announced they cannot continue to support what they consider a betrayal of the promises made to the American people. Among the most surprising voices was Marjorie Taylor Greene, until now an unconditional ally, who denounced that Trump has broken his word and that she does not want to be complicit in what she called irresponsible decisions. Her withdrawal of presidential support not only reflects a personal change but confirms that the fracture within the Republican Party is now an official reality. With a slim majority in the House, losing just a few votes means Trump no longer has full control to impose his agenda, which could stall everything from his immigration reforms to his most radical economic policies. What is happening in Washington is a political earthquake of enormous magnitude, and its repercussions will be felt across the country, from decisions affecting millions of immigrants to the very stability of the White House. The day at the Capitol will be remembered as historic, when amid shouts, applause, and boos, the Republican majority House turned its back on Donald Trump in a twist unimaginable just months ago. What started as a rumor ended in an official declaration that left the president politically unprotected against his own party. The session began with palpable tension, as moderate Republican Congress members, tired of what they call presidential abuses, allied with Democrats to block several of Trump's most controversial initiatives, from ultra-radical immigration reform to budget cuts affecting social programs. The unexpected twist was that figures close to the MAGA movement, like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz, broke ranks and declared they could no longer support decisions they considered a betrayal of promises made to the people. Their words echoed like a gunshot in the chamber. Cameras captured the bewildered faces of Trump's most loyal allies as they heard Greene accuse him of using the party as a tool for personal power, not as a means to serve voters. The final vote was decisive, and for the first time in years, the Republican bloc failed to unite, causing Trump's control over the House to vanish within minutes. While Democrats celebrated an unexpected victory and Republicans faced an internal crisis outside the Capitol, Hispanic protesters celebrated the outcome as a relief against the president's anti-immigrant policies, while international media spoke of an irreversible fracture at the heart of the Republican Party. From Florida, Trump reacted quickly, calling the decision a betrayal and promising that those who abandoned him would pay a high political price. Analysts warned that this rupture could mark the beginning of the decline of his dominance in Congress, as traditional Republican leaders called to regain direction and leave behind the excesses of Trumpism, and Democratic strategists already prepare initiatives to exploit the power vacuum. In just one day, what seemed impossible became reality. The House of Representatives abandoned Trump, confirming that even within his own party, not everyone is willing to follow his orders blindly, and that the political map of the United States has changed forever. The political storm that erupted in Congress immediately spread to the White House and every corner of the Republican Party, where the division can no longer be hidden. Advisors close to Trump describe an atmosphere of fury in his Florida offices, with the former president crying betrayal by those he himself propelled and promising a total purge in his party. His most loyal circle, led by Stephen Miller and Josh Hawley, pushes him to harden his rhetoric against dissenters. Meanwhile, in the Capitol, Republican leader Kevin McCarthy tries to contain the damage by calling for unity, though his words ring hollow, as figures like Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gaetz, and others have already declared that Trump has forgotten the people and does not deserve unconditional support, something unthinkable just a year ago. The Hispanic community reacted immediately, with organizations like Unidos US and Mi Familia Vota celebrating Trump's loss of power as a relief for millions of immigrants worried about his extreme policies. In Latino neighborhoods in New York, Houston, and Los Angeles, the news spread quickly as a momentary breath of fresh air. The international press quickly dubbed this episode the collapse of Trump's absolute control over Congress, with European media comparing this fracture to the fall of authoritarian leaders of the last century, while in Latin America, experts noted that this internal division could slow down the toughest initiatives on deportations and sanctions, though it would also usher in a period of great instability in Washington. Wall Street showed a marked reaction of volatility, as investors fear legislative deadlock will halt economic reforms and increase uncertainty in an election year. Within the Republican Party itself, governors of key states like Texas and Florida opted for calculated silence, weighing the consequences of aligning with a weakened Trump or with a Congress seeking to distance itself. In this battle of loyalties, not only the future of Trumpism is at stake, but also the path Republicans will take in upcoming elections. Beyond speeches, the rebellion in the House of Representatives left an indelible mark. For the first time since Entering politics, Trump faces the real possibility of isolation within his own party. This image of fragility gives hope to his adversaries and generates fear among his supporters, who feel the MAGA era may be coming to an end, with the fracture in the House now consummated. Analysts warn this does not mark the closure of the story, but the beginning of an even more turbulent phase. Some Democrats openly talk about a possible impeachment process, not with the expectation it will succeed in the Senate, but as a tactic to keep Trump on the defensive and wear down his political capital. At the same time, within the Republican Party, the fracture becomes a major internal struggle, with factions demanding immediate leadership change and others preferring to wait and see if the former president can regain ground. The most important thing is that Trump no longer controls the legislative agenda, and every vote becomes a minefield where his internal enemies can block his initiatives. In response, from Florida, the Republican leader plans his counterattack: blacklists of Congress members considered traitors, threats to fund or promote rivals in primaries, and a communication strategy aiming to transform the narrative into a moral crusade against those who abandoned him, repeating the argument that they are not betraying him but the people. However, the real cost of this fracture is borne by millions of immigrants in Hispanic communities, because every legislative paralysis means delays in protection programs, more uncertainty about the future of DACA and TPS, and a climate of hostility that translates into more aggressive local policies. At the same time, contradictory messages are received. The White House orders tougher measures, while Congress blocks budgets, leaving divided families, workers afraid to go out, and children growing up under the constant shadow of deportation caught in the middle. Community organizations put it clearly: when the powerful clash, immigrants pay the price. This perception multiplies in Latino neighborhoods, where the news of the Republican fracture is not entirely celebrated, as it also opens the door to harsher retaliation from a cornered Trump. International experts describe a risky scenario. A weakened president tends to radicalize to show strength, and in this case, Trump could intensify attacks on migrants to regain support from his base, which would worsen social tension in cities with high Hispanic populations. Meanwhile, the possibility that Congress continues to block his policies creates an unexpected scenario: federal courts and the Supreme Court becoming the real arbiters of the Trump era, something already evidenced by the number of lawsuits to halt executive orders. Here arises the big question: are we witnessing the beginning of the end of Trumpism in Washington, or just a pause before a fiercer counterattack? The truth is that the image of a Trump abandoned by his own house will remain a powerful symbol of vulnerability, a crack that could widen until it collapses his leadership, or, on the contrary, serve as an excuse to radicalize his movement and lead the country into an even more intense conflict. The outcome remains open, but no one doubts this fracture marks a before and after in U.S. politics and in the lives of millions of Hispanics, who know that every battle in Congress directly defines their future in this country. What just happened in Washington is not just a legislative twist, but a reminder that no power is eternal, and that even the strongest leaderships can break when citizen pressure and internal betrayal combine. Donald Trump, who presented himself as invincible, now faces the most difficult image of his political career: a Republican Congress that abandons him and forces him to acknowledge he no longer controls his own party. For millions of immigrants and Hispanics, this respite does not mean the battle is won, but it does make clear that presidential power is not absolute, and that every mobilization, every raised voice, every protest has a real impact on the political scoreboard. The lesson is evident: when elites divide, an opportunity arises for the people to reclaim their space. At that moment, the Hispanic community must stay alert, well-informed, and active, because what is at stake is not just a name or a position, but the destiny of millions of families who live, work, and dream in this nation. What lies ahead will be complicated. Trump will seek revenge, radicalize, and push even harder against immigrants to keep his base. But now we know he is not invincible, that he can be stopped, and that unity is the best defense for those who were never invited to govern but sustain with the country with their daily effort. That is why it is time not to remain silent, to spread the truth, and to organize, because the decisions in the coming months will determine whether the division in Congress paves the way for a new cycle, or if Trumpism returns stronger than ever. At that moment, brother, the voice of our people will make the difference.